Hello, welcome to Watching Rugby with Lee, here with former UCD, St. Pat Silverstream, Otago University A coach and proud owner of a new hat. And this week we just watched Mitre 10 rugby, concentrated on 3 games. Otago, Wellington, Southland, Canterbury,
Bay of Plenty,
and
Otago, Manawatu.
So let's talk about poor Southland with your former prop, my former teammate's coaching Southland, having a tough time of it. And I don't know if it's because of Southland's lack of depth or they seemed as if the players were doing the bare minimum.
The most technical thing that was wrong was the defence. They were unable to. The opposition, Wellington, were able to play through the tackles the whole game.
There was no
well over the gain line and build their momentum.
Every tackler was just. They were there making the tackle, but always going backwards.
Going with the tackler,
and
with the ball carrier, yeah.
But no one would. They sort of were just being. It was almost like a practice.
Yeah, and
to see when because they in the end they brought on some players. It'll be interesting to see what will happen next game for them if many of the reserves get in, because they look as like they. I don't know. It's the sort of thing like you come at the end of the game, the opposition's tired, and you can look as if you're better. But a lot of the starting 15 for Southland looked as if they were beaten before, because like Wellington weren't doing anything impressive.
No. And of course the other thing they were doing in their defence line, they were standing dead flat. So if they moved forward, they had to be offside.
Yeah.
So it let Wellington run at them, and then they ran with the Wellington ball carriers towards their own goal line. It was a pretty poor display by Southland. Yeah. Dave Hewitt's got a lot to work on.
Yeah, I mean, it's only the 3rd game. I don't know if he has that much to work with. I don't know enough about like the Southland team and the Southland players.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, doesn't it? That players in these teams come from all over the country, and it's not as if the Southland team or the Wellington team or the other boys down the road who have gone to school in the city.
Yeah.
And that what we've got now is a mixture of players from all over the country in given teams, and getting off the subject a wee bit, but does it affect the parochial enthusiasm for the team?
Well, I think that leads on to the next game that we watched, which was the Canterbury game, who hardly any of them from Canterbury, but Canterbury gets to recruit a lot of it. I don't know if it's because of their past success, or they can say we've got the best coaches, or, Christchurch has got amazing plant and plant life. I don't know. Yeah. It's not. It's it'd be interesting if you had like a state of origin type situation to see where everyone would come from.
Yeah,
it would be.
But I think it through Super Rugby that Canterbury have built a firm foundation, and of course Tasman are in the contributing area to the Crusaders, and Tasman are playing extremely well too. And of course, they beat Canterbury in the first round of the Mitre 10 Cup.
But the big problem with the Canterbury game, Bay of Plenty played fantastic rugby. For the first 5-7 minutes, Canterbury had it on them. I think you missed the first little bit, and then Bay of Plenty responded and had it on them. And like a lot of games in the past, which is unfortunate with rugby refereeing, where when it gets close, near the end of the game, Nina, get out of the you're going to see. Silly. Let's go back to, with a lot of rugby near the end of games, referees will err on the side of the supposedly stronger team. Yeah. And like Canterbury didn't have a lot of their All Blacks and all that, but they would have had lots more depth just because of the amount of players that go to Canterbury. Whereas Bay of Plenty played better.
Yeah, I think Bay of Plenty played very well. What a lot of teams are doing, though, is after scoring from the kickoff, they're they're receiving the ball, and they're playing with the ball close to their own line, if not inside their 22, and not clearing the ball to give them better territorial position.
Well,
and I think that's a real problem.
Canterbury had the wind in the second half, but also we saw another detrimental effect of having a lot of interchange players. Is that Canterbury is always going to have more depth than Bay of Plenty, and as of 60 minutes, it's like half the team goes off, and the second string for Canterbury is always going to be better than the second string for Bay of Plenty.
Yeah, that's just the way things are, and it'll happen right throughout this competition.
You just wish it could, because like the argument for having it is less injuries, isn't it?
It is. It's the injury problem.
But don't you get more injuries by having more interchange? Because then people can be more muscular. The game is faster, and then you get people making big hits all the way through, rather than you get fatigued, smaller players who have to go 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I think we said it last week and the week before that when you would have had a good big player in the past who can only go 70 minutes and you can't start him.
No.
He has to be in, you used to have impact players who could come on when things were a problem.
And that's what they find with when they put the Pacific Island teams together for World Cup qualification.
Yeah.
That invariably where they're playing, wherever it might be around the world, they're looked on as impact players. And they assemble in Fiji, Tonga and Samoa, and they haven't got the stamina to last the game.
They're not match fit.
They're not match fit. Their impact, when they do come on in France or England or wherever it might be, is effective, but they're playing 20 minutes in a game.
Well, you had the suggestion, because the common belief is to start your best front row. Yeah. And you're like, well, why don't you put your second string front row, take the heat off their first string front row, and then bring on... Maybe you would only need them to last, half an hour? Yeah. 25 minutes?
Well, but also then you would know the challenge you're faced with.
Yeah.
And your first string front row, your second string front row might rise to the challenge.
Yeah.
And they'll do quite well.
Whoa.
And then you know what you can bring on.
Yeah, because the reverse is like when you have people coming on for garbage time and you don't actually really see what they can do, especially backs. Because there'll be a tired forward, like at the end of the Australian match, like when Damien McKenzie got the ball and he ran around like a hooker, a tired hooker. He looks fantastic, but he's beating a tired player. Which he should, which is good, whatever.
And, of course, he just doesn't look at who's in front of him in the jersey they're wearing. He looks at that individual. And whether that individual's a tight forward or a position where he's playing, they assess the situation and act appropriately.
Yeah. And the last game, what did we say? Or was there anything else you want to say about the Bay of Plenty Canterbury game?
One thing overall is that increasingly we're seeing inside backs of Polynesian background who are damn good decision makers.
Yeah.
And who are running the ship.
Yeah.
And it shows the maturing of the Polynesian players in this country, having in earlier situations been put in a position like wing where they're allowed to run free.
Yeah.
But we're seeing some outstanding number 10s and number 9s.
Like early in high school, they get to play in centre and then they get to put on wing, and they're never allowed to develop a decision-making position, or never coached in that way, and then they're blamed for not having a decision-making when they aren't coached in their way of doing it. And
and now they're doing it.
Yeah, even more so.
But I think the point in the Otago game was, for some reason, they lit the fuse at half-time, and it kept burning right through the second half. And Manawatu must have wondered what the hell was happening to them. They played well.
There was that left wing who played awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
that was a great game.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the case that top level rugby can be not as exciting as a tear down. because you don't have as good a players in every position. So you have people who are weaker. We saw some good creativity at lineouts and stuff like that, which was good.
But that would be Otago's weakness. Their lineout was vulnerable.
Yeah.
And they're probably got to put that together before next week.
Well, but that was the other thing we were talking about teams only playing one style and only playing power rugby. And like, if you don't have the team to play power rugby, why would you play power rugby?
Well, I think that what has got to be added to that is that no matter who's got the ball in the hand, right, taking it up to barge your way over the gain line is okay.
Yeah.
But having the ability to step and evade someone and put you 2, 3, 4 yards over the gain line is even better. Even big people. Well, we're seeing Retallick do it. You know,
a lot, super effectively. If you're lazy, if you get tackled here or blindsided, you know, if you're going straight on and you get tackled straight on, you're not really serving anybody.
But of course, if you do step and someone runs into the space you've come away from, we are getting, not as much as I would like to see, but we're getting offloads for support coming off the shoulder of the ball carrier. I think one of the other things that needs to be looked at and is increasingly happening is counter-rucking. And every time...
I mean, are we going to call it counter-rucking, or is it just normal rucking?
Oh, well, it's rucking.
From the defending team?
From the defending team.
And actually, and we're talking about things like putting your 3 or 4 tight forwards out where you're going to have second or third phase ball, and having them almost form up like a scrum. Yeah. And hitting the ruck and going all the way through.
Driving through the ball. Yeah, driving through the line of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, because what's the point in not... Because you know that's what teams are going to do. Yeah. Why not have a plan for it?
And also the risks that are involved in counter-rucking at present is you come in on a slight angle or someone takes out someone who's standing innocently 2 metres away and flattening them. Whoa. And both of those are totally unnecessary if you bind as 2 or 3, like a front row, and drive through the ball.
But we saw in the Canterbury game that if you're considered to be the stronger team, that there was nearly a critical point in the middle of the park where 2 Canterbury guys came and literally parallel to the try lines. Yeah. And the refs just like this. Yeah. You see a lot of younger refs and foreign refs coming and they don't have the confidence to rule how they... Well, you don't know.
No.
I mean, there's so many times where there's been, in the Canterbury game, that there was some terrible, terrible decisions that just went by the flow of the game, not by the rules of the game.
Yeah, that's right.
And
it's frustrating for a team like Bay of Plenty who are playing damn good rugby but not getting the due reward.
They still might have lost.
Yeah.
But they did not get a fair shake at trying to win that game, because they were in it for a long time and they sort of ran out of gas a little bit. But a lot of that is because there was some real weird decisions that gave half of the field back to Canterbury.
Yeah. And what you don't like is, after the game, in the summary that's often given, there's almost in the back of what the interviewer is saying, is that, well, that's as good as Bay of Plenty could expect playing against this team. Yeah. Well, that's not the attitude. The attitude is they played good enough to win.
But remember, it was Tony Johnson that had some really good observations about, what was it? It was on one of the tries where the lock for Bay of Plenty got taken out off the ball. He got up. There's a Canterbury guy was just tackled and threw the ball back. No ruck.
Yes.
He caught it.
Yep.
And they got a penalty which put them 3 scores ahead, which was crucial because then Bay of Plenty in the next phase of play got a penalty in front of the post, which they chose to kick to touch to try and get 7 points, which they didn't. Yeah. Instead of, it's little crucial things like that in the end it looks like, oh, Canterbury were always going to win, where it was like, well, not really. That was a 6-point swing.
Yeah, and don't you think that when penalties are given, I forget what I was going to say.
Well,
Yeah.
but we're both not from Canterbury.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm sure all Canterbury people aren't known to be parochial, though, are they?
No, not very. No. Yep. I also think that all teams have things they can work on, and I think one thing that Canterbury might like to look to work on is playing more north-south down the field and less east-west across the field.
Well, that was one of the rules that I think is an antiquated rule. I think the maul rule is an antiquated rule from when South Africa and England in the early 90s would just hold the ball in the maul and then get it to the scrum and do the same. But no one does that anymore, so we can get rid of that rule and have more players come in to defend it, and so we've got more space.
Yeah.
And the other one is doing an attacking kick that runs out into the dead ball line and getting punished for it, like having the scrum back where you kicked it from, where we don't want the defence to know that you're not going to kick. We don't want the defence to feel like rugby league where you know that it's not going to kick it, and so it can come up and crash. No. And we want people to feel as if they can do like a 22 is enough of a penalty against someone who kicks it off into that to get the ball all the way back to when he's like doing a chip and it just rolls on. They're not, because it was who was the fullback for South Africa with the French name way back.
Joubert.
Yeah, he'd had that series here where that's what all he was doing. He'd grab the ball around halfway and just kick it dead. Yeah. And then you get the 22. So the rule is to stop him, he was around 17, 18 years ago. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know does New Zealand have the power to change rules?
I think all
just for their competitions.
Oh,
or does it have to go through the IRB, or is that just the World Cup?
You got to get approved by the IRB.
Why?
Because they're the ruling body, and there can only be one source and they call it rugby laws. So they're laws of the game.
What happens if you change a law for the MPC?
You might get it approved, but you have to go through the IRB.
No, but okay. So what if you don't? Say if you want to change the maul law or change the ball going over the dead ball law, and the IRB doesn't even see it, and you just do it. What happens to the union?
Oh, I don't know, but
do you get uninvited to the World Cup, or you do not get funding?
No, but if your national team is playing in a competition and the laws change, it can be hard to adapt to.
Well, you see it in a lot of other sports.
Oh,
you see that you see it in soccer even, like where Germany the Bundesliga had retroactive yellow and red cards. You see it in basketball, where the shot clock in international basketball is from when it leaves the hand, and the NBA it's when it hits the hoop.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah. But I think there is an argument to make them realise they have to defend down the field rather than just across it.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing.
Yeah.
That's the important point you make.
Yeah.
Yeah. About it.
That's pretty much it. I think what's coming up this week is Argentina, All Blacks, Nelson. Any predictions for that?
It'd be interesting to see the Argentinian backs running with the ball. They're big men, they're powerful, they beat a man, they can offload. So it'd just be interesting to see how they get on. And
do you think their scrum is the best in World Rugby?
It's always been the assumption, but they're pretty hard pressed to better the All Black scrum.
Yeah,
I think.
But even though we've always had good, well, not always have good, even when we have a good scrum, usually we just use it as a platform.
Yeah. Oh, New Zealand wins games by scoring tries.
Yeah. It's not
they don't look to milk scrums and balls and rucks just to kick penalties. But that's the other thing with Argentina. Yeah. Their goal kicker is pretty good.
But we did see one thing that you were super pleased in one of the games was a rolling maul, rolling into the against Canterbury,
Yeah.
rolling into the inside backs,
Yeah.
and which made the halfback for some reason stand behind the ruck, and the first 5 come in to defend the thing and the maul, and Bad Plenty got a great whoop-in try.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
No, it was good. And of course, that's always the way when you throw the ball deep in the line out. Because you want to tie in their tail of the line out, that's when you have the maul to bring them in, and then you can roll it infield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for Watching Rugby with Lee. This week is Argentine and All Blacks from Nelson.
And
Is it?
Australia, South Africa.
So Australia, South Africa. So if you guys want to watch that, any comments or anything, just let us know. See you next week.